Everyone talks about moving to Nigeria like it's a homecoming party, but nobody tells you what happens after the excitement fades. Nobody tells you about day three, when the noise, the pressure, the expectation start to get into your head. You start questioning yourself. You start feeling guilty for having more than others. You start feeling like a stranger in the place you're supposed to call home. And suddenly, this dream move starts to feel like a psychological battle. And if you've moved back or you're planning to, this is the part nobody prepared you for. Because moving back to Nigeria is not just a physical relocation. It's not just about shipping your boxes, finding a house, or setting up solar. It's a mental shift, an emotional shift, and for many people, it becomes an identity crisis. They don't even have the language to explain. And the most dangerous part is you might be going through it and not even realize it. Because on the other side, everything looks fine. You have your apartment, you have your car, you're posting nice pictures. People are saying, you're doing well, you moved back. But inside, you're tired. Not just physically tired, mentally tired from adjusting, from navigating a system that doesn't work the way you're used to. And nobody warns you about that. Now, let's talk about the first thing that hits you, the gap between expectation and reality. Before you move back, there is a version of Nigeria in your mind, a curated version, a soft life version. You're thinking slower pace, better connection to home, more control over your life, maybe even more respect. You imagine yourself waking up in your home, drinking tea in your balcony, working on your business, building something meaningful. You imagine peace, but what you don't factor in is how much effort it takes to create the peace. Because in Nigeria, nothing is automatic, everything is manual. You want light, you have to think about it. You want water, you have to plan it. You want internet, your backup needs a backup. Even the simplest things require mental energy. And what that does over time is something called decision fatigue. You're constantly making small decisions all day. Should I turn on the generator if you're not in the service department? Is there fuel? Did NEPA take light again? Is this driver trustworthy? Is the nanny trustworthy? Is the price real or are they inflating it? It never stops, and slowly that starts to wear you down. Not in a dramatic way, in a quiet way. You just notice that you're more irritable, more impatient, more mentally drained, and you start asking yourself, why am I so tired all the time? It's because your environment is demanding more from your brain than you're used to. Now, let's talk about something people do not like to admit, the guilt of privilege. This one is heavy because when you come back, especially if you are doing well abroad, you're immediately seen differently, even if you don't feel rich. You're perceived as rich, even if you're just managing. People assume you have access, and suddenly, your life is no longer just your own. You start getting requests. Can you help me with something small? Can you send something? The requests are coming, never ending. Can you support this? At first, it feels okay. You want to help. You should help. But then it becomes constant. And here's where the psychological tension starts. Because on one hand, you understand the reality of Nigeria. You see the struggle. You see how hard things are. But on the other hand, you're trying to build your own life. You're trying to stay afloat. You're trying to maintain your sanity. And now you're stuck between two emotions, responsibility and resentment. And that's a very uncomfortable place to be. Because nobody wants to feel resentful towards their own people. But it happens, and it happens quietly. You start feeling like everyone is pulling from you emotionally, financially, mentally, and you don't know how to say no without feeling like a bad person. So instead, you say yes, yes, yes. And that's how the mental pressure builds. Then comes the biggest one of all, identity crisis. This is the one that really shakes people because before you moved back, you had a clear sense of who you were. Maybe you were the Nigerian abroad. You had structure, you had systems, you had a certain way of thinking. But then you come back and to a place you once called home, you don't fully fit in anymore. And that realization can be very unsettling. You notice it in small things, the way you speak, the way you think, the way you approach problems. You start hearing things like, you've changed, you're acting foreign, you don't understand how things work here. And at the same time, if you go back abroad, you don't feel fully at home either. So now you're in between, not fully here, not fully there. And that in between space, it can feel very lonely because it's not something you can easily explain. People who haven't experienced this won't understand. They will just say, but this is your country. How can you feel like a stranger? But that's exactly how you feel sometimes. And when you don't process that feeling properly, it turns into frustration, then confusion, then disconnection. And this is usually the point where people start asking themselves, did I make a mistake? Not because Nigeria is bad, but because they weren't prepared mentally. They prepared financially, they prepared logistically, right? But nobody told them that this move would challenge their identity, their emotions, their sense of control. Now let's go deeper into something that almost nobody admits, the loneliness. And this one is tricky because when you move back to Nigeria, you're not physically alone. You're surrounded by people. I mean, family, friends, noise, movement, life. But emotionally, you can feel completely disconnected. You might be in a room full of people, but still feel alone because the version of you has changed. Your mindset has changed. Your expectations have changed. And now you don't fully fit into the same spaces anymore. So you withdraw. Little by little, you stop explaining yourself. You keep things in, and that leads to emotional isolation. Now, add that to stress. I know what you get, a burnout. You wake up tired. You feel unmotivated. You feel disconnected. And because everything looks fine on the outside, nobody notices. Some people become irritable. Others become quiet. Some even slip into depression without realizing it. They just feel stuck, confused, disconnected. And then the guilt comes again. I should be grateful. Others have it worse. So instead of addressing it, they suppress it. Now let's talk about relationships because this is where things get even more complicated. When you move back, people see you differently. You're now the one from abroad, and with that comes expectation. People expect more from you, more help, more support, more availability. And because it's family, saying no feels wrong. So you overgive until you feel drained. And then resentment starts to build quietly. You start asking, why is everything on me? Who is there for me? And if you don't handle it properly, it creates distance. So what do? You set boundaries, not aggressively, but firmly. Because without boundaries, you will burn out. Now let's bring everything together because the goal is not just to survive Nigeria, but to live here without losing yourself. You need a system. Now the first one is acceptance. Nigeria is what it is. Stop fighting the reality. The second one is structure. Plan your life, create awareness, reduce chaos. And the third one is boundaries. Protect your energy. The fourth is environment. Choose your people carefully. And the fifth one is identity. Allow yourself to evolve. And finally, give yourself grace. This is not easy. You're adjusting. You're learning. You're rebuilding yourself. Moving back to Nigeria is not just about relocation. It's about transformation. And if you do it right, you won't just survive, you will grow. Take your time, protect your mind, build your system, and you'll be okay. Until next time, stay blessed.